breastfeeding or pregnant, and they fear for themselves, fear for their life or the life of their child. So obviously if they're not taking in any energy, then there's nothing for the child to suckle on. If they do fear for themselves or for their baby's lives, then during the month of Ramadan they're allowed to break their fast, they should feed a poor person for every day. And also they don't have to make up these days. They don't have to make up the days. They don't have to make up the days that they miss. They should feed a poor person for every day that they miss. Is that understood? And that's authentic narrated from Abdullah ibn Abbas and Fatwa of Abdullah ibn Abbas and Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma. And that is easier for them. That is easier for them to do. The Shaykh is now going on to a few issues before moving on to the next chapter to do with issues to do with the niyyah, the intention. The Shaykh says, وَمَنْ نَوَى الصَّوْمَ, the one who intends to fast, يعني tomorrow, ثُمَّ جُنَّ, then he becomes insane, أو أُغْمِيَ عَلَيْهِ, or he loses consciousness during the day, جَمِيعَ النَّهَارِ, يعني for the whole day, عفوا. So he doesn't have consciousness, he's in coma for the whole day. وَلَمْ يُفِقْ جُزْءًا مِنْهُ لَمْ يَصِحَّ صَوْمُهُ. So if a person goes into coma, the Shaykh saying, if a person becomes insane or loses consciousness for the whole day and they do not regain their consciousness for the whole day, then their fast is invalid. لَمْ يَصِحَّ صَوْمُهُ. لَمْ يَصِحَّ صَوْمُهُ. So if a person is in coma for the whole day, مثلا tomorrow is Ramadan, and a person is in coma now, and then they're in coma for the next few days. Or if a person is insane, they're majnoon, and they're majnoon for the whole of the day, 5 days, 6 days, or even a whole month. The Shaykh says, لَمْ يَصِحَّ صَوْمُهُ. Then their fasting is not valid. طبعا if a person is in coma, they can't fast anyway. If a person is what? Majnoon, they might see people fasting and then might also fast. The Shaykh says, it's true. You never know. A person can fast even if they will. The Shaykh says their fasting is invalid. Why? Due to the lack of intention. They don't have intention. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. And the Messenger ﷺ said, the pen has been lifted upon 3. From them is the majnoon, the person who is not, the person who's insane. The Shaykh says, لا إنام جميع النهار. If they are asleep for the whole day, then their fasting is valid. So if a person sleeps before suhoor, a few hours before suhoor, and they sleep throughout the whole day and they wake up after iftar, is their fasting valid or not? No. Huh? Why is it valid? It's not. It's not invalid.
It's not valid. It's counted because
it's counted. It's not valid. Oh, it's counted.
Because he was just sleeping.
But he wasn't awake during the whole day.
He didn't make the intention.
Didn't make the intention. They refused to wake him. Refused to call his name. Would he wake up?
Yeah.
The one who's lost consciousness, likewise, he's asleep the whole day.
His mind is gone.
His mind is gone completely. So even if you wake him up, he won't wake up. In the person who's asleep, if you wake him up, shrug him, he'll what? Wake up. Therefore, the person who's asleep the whole day or their fast is invalid. They're sinning. Why? They're missing the salah. And a lot of people do that. In order to waste time. Subhanallah, as if time is meant to be wasted. Like in a lot of people do that, where they sleep and then wake up in the end because they don't want to feel the hunger. Like if they're asleep, طبعا they won't realize they're hungry. Like that's haram. And if anyone does know anyone like that, they should warn them against it and command them to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Shaykh says, وَيَلْزَمُ الْمُغْمَى عَلَيْهِ الْقَضَاءُ فَقَطْ. The Shaykh says, out of these three, the one who is asleep, طبعا his fasting is valid, صح? The one who is insane, is his fasting invalid or valid? Invalid. Do they have to make it up?
Yeah.
The insane person, do they have to make it up? Every mas'ala in the book is built upon the previous mas'ala. Or a lot of masail in this chapter are built upon other issues that were discussed in the beginning of the chapter. Who is fasting wajib upon? على كل مسلم على كل مسلم قادر مكلف. Mukallaf is who? The aqil and the baligh. صح? If a person is not majnoon, if a person is majnoon, if they're crazy, insane, aslan it's not wajib upon them to fast. It is not wajib upon them to fast. So why did they have to make it up? They don't have to make it up. It's not wajib upon them to fast in the first place. Like in the Shaykh says, وَيَلْزَمُ الْمُغْمَى عَلَيْهِ الْقَضَاءُ فَقَدْ. Like in the one who has lost consciousness or is in coma, then it's wajib for them to make it up. It is wajib for them to make it up. Like it can also be said that even for this individual, then his mind was not there, so he doesn't have to fast. Like in the Shaykh says, rahmatullah alayhi, وَيَلْزَمُ الْمُغْمَى عَلَيْهِ القضاء, then he has to make it up after Ramadan. وَيَجِبُ تَعْيِينُ النِّيَّةِ, and it is wajib to specify the intention. مِنَ اللَّيْلِ, from starting from the night or the night before, لِصَوْمِ كُلِّ يَوْمٍ وَاجِبٍ. Every day that is fast, if the fasting is wajib. So we know fasting is of two types. There's a fasting which is wajib and a fasting which is what? Fasting which is wajib, Ramadan, kafara, so on, and fasting which is sunnah. For the fasting which is wajib, then a person needs to have the correct intention the night before. The night before. لا نية الفريضة. نعم. So the person has to have the intention. The person has to have the intention that they are going to fast. For example, if tomorrow is Ramadan, they have to have the intention of fasting tomorrow. And that fast, طبعا, is a wajib fast, the fast of Ramadan. Now, their intention, they can make their intention at the beginning of the month or every single night. At the beginning of the month or every single night. Like, is there a difference?
No.
Huh?
No.
When Ramadan comes in, every single Muslim intends to what? Fast. What? 5 days, 2 days, or the whole month? The whole month. That's why the scholars that say the intention is enough for the person to have the intention at the beginning of the month, because the person, the Muslim naturally in general, will always intend to fast the whole month. طيب. Like in the Maliki, and some scholars say that you should have the intention every single night. Like, there's no need because you've already made the intention. The fact that you're waking up for suhoor shows that you have the intention. طيب. Like, if a person for a certain part of the month wasn't fasting, menstruating woman for example, or a person who was traveling 3, 4, 5 days, then they need to obviously make their intention again. Because their first intention was what? The first intention was cut short due to them fasting, or due to them breaking their fast due to menstruation, or due to postnatal bleeding, or due to traveling, or any other reason. طيب. So the intention the person has to have, if it's a wajib fast, the person has to have the intention from the night before. The Shaykh says, وَيَصِحُ النَّفْلُ بِنِيَّةٍ مِنَ النَّهَارِ. It is, as for the nafl, the fasting which is sunnah, then it is correct or it's permissible for them to have the intention during the day. During the day. صح? وَيَصِحُ, the Shaykh says, وَيَصِحُ. So supererogatory fasts are valid using an intention made during the day. What do you understand from that?
That you can make up the intention for sunnah. You don't have to do it before. You can make it during the day.
During the day.
Whenever you decide to fast.
The Shaykh says, okay, قبل الزوال أو بعده. You can make it during the day. The Shaykh says, قبل الزوال, before zawal. Zawal is the time of dawn. Or بعد الزوال, or after zawal. Why does he include the end bit? What's the reason for him including zawal, before zawal and after zawal? Because he's already told us that your fasting is correct during the day. Yeah, Hassan, صح. You'd think when you look at the second part, there's no need. The Shaykh's already said that your fasting is correct during any time of the day. And in these sort of books where they summarize the mukhtasarat of fiqh, the less wording that the author uses, the better. Because it's a summary, it's not like Mughni, a long book which has 14, 15 volumes. So if you ever see words that are extra in the matan, then more often than not, they're referring to a khilaf in this mas'ala. Like last week we mentioned the word what? Walau. Walau, even though. So if you ever hear in these books, or in most circumstances, not in all, in most, if you hear even though, you have to do this, even though, then even though, in more often than not, refers to a khilaf. So the mas'ala, ala kulli hal, is if a person wants to fast a fasting which is sunnah, Monday, Thursday, fasting which is sunnah, then they can make up the fast from the day, any time during the day. That is based on the hadith in which the Messenger ﷺ came to his house and he said, هَلْ عِنْدَكُم مِّن شَيْءٍ, have you got any food? And they said, لَا, sallallahu wasallamu alayhi. And he said, فَإِنِّي إِذَنْ صَائِمٌ. Verily then, in that case, then I am fasting. So the hadith shows that the Messenger ﷺ made his intention from there. Sah? طيب. The Messenger ﷺ made his intention from there. So if a person intends to fast during the day, then they can do so any part of the day, or at any part of the day, before dhuhr or after dhuhr. طيب. Like when will they be rewarded for it?
As soon as they start it,
As soon as they have the intention. From that point until iftar. The Shaykh says, وَلَوْ نَوَى إِنْ كَانَ غَدًا مِّن رَمَضَانَ فَهُوَ فَرَضِي لَمْ يَجْزِهِ. The Shaykh says, if a person says that if tomorrow is Ramadan, then that is my Ramadan, then I am fasting, and that is my intention. If tomorrow is Ramadan, وَلَوْ نَوَى إِنْ كَانَ غَدًا, if tomorrow is Ramadan, then I'm fasting. If tomorrow is Ramadan, then that is my wajib, or I have the intention for that. The Shaykh says, لَمْ يَجْزِهِ, then it is not permissible, the Shaykh says. Then if tomorrow is part of Ramadan, then it is my obligatory fast. But it does not suffice, the Shaykh says, it does not suffice him. طيب. وَمَنْ نَوَى الْإِفْطَارَ أَفْطَرَ. The last mas'ala that the Shaykh talks about in the issues to do with the intention, مَنْ نَوَى الْإِفْطَارَ, the one who intends to break his fast, أَفْطَرَ, then he has broken his fast. So if a person intends to break his fast, just by the intention alone they have broken their fast. So, just by the intention alone. So if a person is fasting مثلا during the month of Ramadan, and they say, or they intend to break their fast, and they go to look for food to break their fast, like they can't find food, like they've made the intention to fast, then their fast is what? Valid or invalid? Does it break there or not? The Shaykh says, Nawa al-iftar aftar. If he intends to fast, to break his fast, then his fast is invalid from that point onward. Why? إِنَّمَا الْعَمَلُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. This individual intends to break his fast. Is there a difference between the fasting which is wajib and the fasting which is sunnah? the fasting which is wajib, if a person intends to break his fast, then his fast is invalid, صح? طيب. Even if he doesn't eat food. After a few, he has to make it up. Like after a few minutes, he says, astaghfirullah, shouldn't have broken my fast. Can he start his fast from there on again?
No.
Why?
It has to be done at the beginning of the day.
Huh?
The whole thing, the wajib has to be started from the beginning of the day.
His intention has to be part of. You guys are on the other side, look a bit confused. طيب. If a person is fasting, a fast which is wajib, طيب, and he intends to break his fast, looks for food to break his fast, like he can't find food, like he's already made the intention. His fasting from that point is what? Broken, invalid. طيب. Can he make the intention after repentance, saying astaghfirullah, this? Can he make the intention after a few minutes? Or an hour? Half an hour? Make the intention again. Why?
The wajib, I need to make the intention the night before.
طيب. Sunnah fasting. A person intends to break his fast, and he does so. He breaks his fast simply because of his niyyah. Doesn't need anything. Lakin he intends to, then he says, astaghfirullah, I'm going to carry on my fasting. Can he make his fast from there onwards?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because the intention does have to be at the beginning of the day.
With the sunnah, the intention doesn't have to be from the night before. Based on the hadith in which the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, then verily I am fasting. طيب. باب ما يفسد الصوم ويوجب الكفارة. The Shaykh says things that nullify the sawm. The Shaykh is now moving on to things that nullify the sawm. Lakin, let's pray Asr first, and then we'll have a few minute break, and then carry on inshallah straight after Asr. وبالله التوفيق. Someone call the alarm, please.
الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين. The Sheikh says, باب ما يفسد الصوم ويوجب الكفارة, or the chapter dealing with those things that nullify or invalidate the fasting, ويوجب الكفارة, and make kafara wajib. طبعا if it nullifies the fasting, it means that number one, that fasting has to be, or the person is firstly sinning. The Shaykh is now talking about things that nullify the fasting, things that invalidate the fasting. Now, if a person falls into these nawaqid as-siyam, things that nullify the siyam, firstly, they're sinning. Secondly, they have to make up the day in which they broke their fast. Thirdly, there are some of these things which break the fast that require kafara, expiation. And the kafara is either freeing a slave, fasting 2 months in a row, or feeding 60 poor people, as we shall see. The Shaykh says, Man akala, the one who eats during the day, طبعا. Man akala, أو شرب, أو استعظ, أو احتقن, أو اكتحل بما يصل إلى حلقه أو أدخل في جوفه شيئا من أي موضع كان غير إحليله أو استقاء أو استمنع. على كل حال, the Shaykh mentions a few things that nullify one's fasting. Firstly, man akala, the one who eats. Man akala أو شرب, eating or drinking. طبعا, if a person eats or drinks intentionally, then their fasting is invalid. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمُ الْخَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضُ مِنَ الْخَيْطِ الْأَسْوَدِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Jalla wa ala, eat, كُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا, eat and drink up until you see the brightness of the day becomes clear from the darkness of the night. Meaning, the time of Fajr or the time of pre-dawn, or the pre-dawn meal has ended. The time of the pre-dawn meal has ended and the time of Fajr as-Sadiq has come in. So the time that Fajr comes in is the time that person stops eating. طيب حتى يتبين لكم حتى يعني up until. So eating and drinking before the Fajr, the time of the Fajr, the entering of the time of the Fajr, is mubah, permissible. Like after that point, up until that point, it becomes haram. So if a person eats or drinks intentionally, then it is haram. The Shaykh says, oh, sta'adha. You will find that a lot of these things that the Shaykh is about to mention, the reason why they mention these things is they include the Hanabila, anything that goes in through the throat or any other entrance of the body and that reaches the stomach. So anything that reaches the stomach, the belly, regardless of how it got there, anything, regardless of whether it's food, drink, whether it's other than food or drink, as long as anything enters there, or if anything enters into the stomach, then it is a nullifier according to the Hanabila. طيب. So eating and drinking is one of them. Eating and drinking. طيب. أو استعاذة. Ista'adh is taking nose drops. According to the Shaykh rahmatullahi alayhi in the madhab, if a person uses nose drops and it goes into his throat, then it nullifies the fasting. Or احتقن, or injects some, uses injection through the back entrance, So that also nullifies the fasting, because it's something that is going into the body and it's an injection, whatever it may be, it's something that is going into the body. So because of that, it nullifies the siyam. طيب. Or اكتحل, or uses kuhul, eyeliner that goes into بما يصل إلى حلقه, uses the eyeliner and then it goes into his throat or her throat. So if a person uses eyeliner and it goes to the throat, because if a person uses eye drops, sometimes you can feel it in where? On your tongue, right? صح. Likewise, kuhul, or using an eyeliner. How many things have we got so far? Or Shaykh says, the last one, or أدخل في جوفه شيئا, or puts into his jawf, puts inside of him, through his throat, into his belly, شيئا أي شيء يعني anything من أي موضع كان from any part of the body. So if a person inserts anything into his body, then the Shaykh says rahmatullahi alayhi, it becomes or invalidates his fasting. طيب غير إحليله, apart from the entrance of the penis or the tip of the penis, anything that enters through that hole or that opening, then that doesn't nullify, because that cannot get into the stomach, or anything that goes in there cannot get to the stomach or go to the throat. طيب, how many things has the Shaykh mentioned now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sahih. The Shaykh says these 5 are from the things that break the siyam. طيب. From these 5, eating and drinking breaks the fasting. صح؟ اجمع حتى يتبين لكم خيط الأبيض من الخيط الأسود. طيب. As for all of the other things, eye drops or nose drops or whatever it may be, these things don't invalidate they do not invalidate the fasting, because they're not considered to be food or drink. So according to other scholars, or a lot of other scholars, these things don't nullify a person's fasting, whether they use eye drops or nose drops or anything like that. They don't nullify the fasting, because they're not considered food or drink. And because they're not considered food or drink, whether they go into the body or not, then they don't give the body quwwah or ability, or they don't give the body energy. So it's not like glucose. And likewise, the same for injections, any part of the body. Some injections carry what? Have glucose, sah? Like people that have diabetes use glucose. That gives them energy, sah? So that is considered food and drink. So for that obviously nullifies the fasting. Hence a person who has diabetes more often than not cannot fast. Like if it's other types of injections, for example, if a person is getting a tooth taken out, an injection or a needle is put into his body, into his gum to numb it, then that doesn't nullify the fasting. Or if a needle is inserted into any part of the body to numb it for whatever reason, then that doesn't nullify the siyam. The Shaykh says, istiqa'a, or makes himself vomit. So the first 2 things was eating and drinking, sah? Eating and drinking nullify one's fast. The second thing is istiqa'a, the person who vomits intentionally. Istiqa'a, alif, sin, and ta, in the Arabic language, they require talab, an action from a person himself. So istiqa'a means if a person makes himself vomit, whether he sticks a finger up his throat, or whether he smells something, intention is something which is disgusting, or thinks about something which is disgusting, which naturally makes him vomit, or even looks at vomit, that can also be considered like as if the person is forcing himself to fast, to vomit. For mathalan, if a person, everyone knows themselves, someone can look at vomit all day long and not vomit. And someone knows that if just by looking at it, they're going to vomit. So for that individual, they don't look at the vomit. They're not meant to look at the vomit. Because if they do, then they're going to vomit themselves. And because of that, it can be a reason for their fasting to be nullified. So the most obvious way of obviously of making himself fast, if a person making himself vomit, if a person sticks a finger into his throat. If a person does that, then their fasting is invalid. Due to the hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Man istaqa'a 'amdan falyaqdi." The one who makes himself vomit intentionally, then let him make up that day, or the day that he has, let him make it up. وَمَنْ ذَرَعَهُ الْغَيُّ فَلَا قَضَاءَ عَلَيْهِ. As for the one that is forced to vomit by no choice of his own, then for him, they can carry on, or he should, فَلَا قَضَاءَ عَلَيْهِ, carry on his song without having to make up that day. So if a person vomits, like it's not due to his own doing, then he does not have to make up that fast. طيب. أو استمنى, or masturbates. So if a person masturbates, أو باشر, or or kisses or fondling or anything to do with foreplay or anything like that, or touching his genitals, then فَأَمْنَى, and many comes out, or أَمْذَى, or many comes out. So either if many comes out, or مذي comes out, the Shaykh says نعم أو أمذى أو كرر النظر فأنزل, or if he carries on looking at something, and because of that فأنزل, and then many comes out, then what is the ruling? Or احتجم, that's the next thing. على كل حال, the Shaykh has now moved on to the next thing that breaks the fasting. How many have we studied so far? Or how many have we mentioned? Eating and drinking and intentionally vomiting. طيب أو استمنى. These three sentences or these three issues are to do with the shahwa. If a person masturbates and ejaculates, sperm comes out, then their fasting is invalid. Or if a person looks at something that is going to cause him to ejaculate, and they do ejaculate, then their fasting is also invalid. طيب. Lakin we have to differentiate between two things. Many, which is sperm, and something which is called madhi, that with a dhal, madhi. Madhi is pre-ejaculation, something that comes out, thin, sticky, liquid form that comes out of the private parts when a person thinks about sexual intercourse or the opposite gender. Now, many nullifies wudu, lakin also requires ghusl. As for madhi, it nullifies the wudu, lakin a person should only has to sprinkle or wash the private parts and the part of the garment that it touches. So that is the difference between many and madhi. Now, if a person ejaculates, meaning many, during the month of Ramadan, by way of masturbating or foreplay or looking at something which will cause a person to ejaculate, then their fasting is invalid from that point onwards. They have broken their fast. Just because, or straight after them ejaculating, then they break their fast. طيب. Lakin if they see madhi, madhi is that substance that comes out before intercourse, when a person thinks about anything that can cause a person's shahwa to be excited. طيب, right? Cause a person to be excited. If this does come out during the fast, then their fast is still valid. Although according to the Shaykh, he says that it is invalid. Like in their fast, the person's fast is valid. And they do not need to make up that day because the fasting is valid. So that is the difference between the two, of many coming out of the private parts or madhi coming out of the private parts. طيب. The Shaykh says, "O karrar another," or a person constantly looking. What if a person looks one time and then ejaculates? Do they have to make it up? Is their fast invalid?
Yeah.
One time he looks and ala dul, he ejaculates. Look onto what the Shaykh says. If a person repeatedly karrar another, he repeatedly looks. لك الأولى وليست لك الثانية. The first is for you and the second isn't for you. When the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam was talking about if a person not looking at that which is haram, then if he accidentally sees something which is haram, then he's not blameworthy, he's not sinning for the first go. Like in the second time when he carries on looking, or he looks again, then for that point he's sinning. So that's why the Shaykh says, "Oh, karrar another." He repeatedly carries on looking, and then looking, and then looking. So if he does, the Shaykh says فَأَنزَلَ, and because of him carrying on looking, if he does ejaculate, then his fasting is invalid. We understand from the matan, with the words of the Shaykh, we understand from it. So there's a mantuq and a mafhum. You might want to write this down as a side benefit. There's a mantuq. First one. Which one? There. Al-Mantuq.
Yeah, the first one you missed them.
This one, the top one.
Yeah, no, don't worry about it.
Like Mantuq.
Yeah.
That's the noon there. Al-Mantuq and Al-Mafhum. Al-Mantuq is exactly what it says on the matan. Mathalan, the Shaykh says, ejaculation after repeatedly looking. What do we understand from that? If a person ejaculates after repeatedly looking, then their fasting is what? The fasting is invalid. We understand that from where? The words of the Shaykh, sah? That is the mantuq of what he says. That is the mantuq of what he says. This is just a side benefit. It's to do with usul al-fiqh. It's to do with usul al-fiqh. It's not that big. Like ala kulli hal, it means a lot of difference. It makes a lot of difference when you look into haram, halal and so on. So the mantuq of what the Shaykh says is that if a person repeatedly looks and they ejaculate because of that, then their fasting is invalid. What do we understand from it? What we understand from it is the mafhum. What we understand from the Shaykh's words. So he doesn't directly say it, like we can understand from it. From these words, what can we understand? What is the mafhum?
And if you don't repeatedly look at it, it doesn't break the fast.
Exactly. So if a person sees something that gets him excited and then ejaculates immediately after that, then they're not blameworthy. And their fasting is what? Their fasting is valid. طيب. What if a person thinks about intercourse or anything to do with intercourse and then ejaculates? Are they blameworthy?
Yeah.
Is their fasting invalid? Thinks about it. لا لا Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إن الله تجاوز لي عن أمتي ما حدثت به نفسها أو أنفسها ما لم تعمل به أو ما لم تتكلم. So the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that my ummah have been excused from what the soul, what its nafs, what it tells it, as long as they don't act upon it or they don't speak it. مثلا الآن, if a person intends to steal something, or he says to himself, shall I steal or shall I not steal it? Are they sinning for that? For them talking to themselves, No, they're not sinning. Yeah, you can't really do anything, right? So you can't do anything about it. I mean, مثلا, it's not up to you. Or you can, obviously you can change your way of thinking. Like should it happen, then it does happen and it's no choice of your own. In that case, a person isn't sinning. A person isn't sinning. Like if they intentionally do it, then they may be sinning. Like if they do ejaculate because of that, then their fasting is valid. طيب. طيب. If a person, we'll move on to that masala after. على كل حال, how many issues have we mentioned now? How many things that nullify the fasting? How many things nullify the fasting that we mentioned so far? 3. First,
Eating or drinking,
طيب.
vomiting intentionally, and if you do anything to cause money to
طيب. The Shaykh says, أو حجم أو احتجم وظهر دم. Or if a person performs bloodletting, or if it is done upon him. Hijama. Hijama is, I'm sure a lot of you are aware, where a person wants to take the filthy blood from out of his body. So they use cupping, it's called cupping, or blood cupping. So they cut a certain part of the body, they put a cup on it, and then they suck the skin back in. And then after, they cut this part which has been sucked out, and then blood comes out. Now that blood is, and it's bad blood. Filthy blood that has been in the body for a long period of time, which needs to be taken out or cleaned. طيب. So the Shaykh says, rahmatullahi alayhi, that this is from the things that nullify one's fasting. Due to the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam saying, احتجم وهو صائم. أو لا أفطر الحاجم والمحجوب. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, the one that performs hijama and the one that is being done upon, then they have broken their fast. طبعا in this issue there's a khilaf in it between al-ilm, whether hijama breaks your fast or not. Some of them use as evidence the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or the hadith ihtajama wa huwa sa'im. The Messenger done hijama when he was, or whilst he was fasting. طيب. على كل حال, whether it nullifies or it doesn't nullify, the scholars talk about a masala which is called خروج من الخلاف, leaving the khilaf. If there's a masala that there's khilaf in, abstaining from this masala altogether is mustahab, or is recommended. For example, now a group of scholars say that if you do hijama, if hijama is performed upon you, your fast is invalid. صح? صح? طيب. And the second group say that if you do hijama, your fast is valid. Right? So if you do hijama according to those scholars that say it's okay to do it, your fasting is what? Valid. Lakin according to the other scholars, your fasting is what? Invalid. So in that case, if you leave out hijama altogether, both of them say that your fasting is what? Valid. So this is a masala which is khuruj min al-khilaf, and it's something which the scholars talk about. It's very important. So if there's something which there's khilaf and there's no need for you to do it, then it's better to avoid it altogether. Obviously that doesn't include every type of khilaf. Only the khilaf which the adilla are mutakafi'ah, yani they're close. So both are strong. For example, مثلا ghusl, wajib and sunnah, صح? Two opinions, wajib and sunnah. By performing ghusl, yawm al-jum'ah, you've left that khilaf altogether, صح? You're not blameworthy according to the scholars that say it is wajib to do. طيب. The next masala that the Shaykh says is عامدا ذاكرا لصومه فسد لا ناسيا أو مكرها. These things that the Shaykh mentioned, all of these things, how many things did the Shaykh mention? How many things did we mention? 4 or 5, sir? That nullify the fasting. 4. طيب. Include all of the things that the Shaykh mentions. على كل حال, the Shaykh says عامدا. If a person does it intentionally. If a person does any of these things intentionally, then their fast is invalid. ذاكرا, whilst remembering that he is fasting. لصومه فسد. So if a person does these things intentionally, their fasting is invalid. لا ناسيا. Lakin if he does it accidentally, then his fast is invalid. His fast is valid. Or not only if he does it whilst forgetting, or makruha, or if he's forced to do any of these things, then his fasting is still valid. طيب, let's go back to it. If a person eats accidentally, what's the opposite to intentional? Accidental. If a person eats accidentally, what should they do? Carry in their fasting. صح? Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, إذا أكل أو شرب أحدكم فليتم صومه أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. If one of you eats or drinks, let him complete his fast. فإنما أطعمه الله سقاه. For verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided provision for him, given him something to eat or drink. Therefore, the fasting of a person who accidentally eats is still valid. Is still valid. Why? Because the person has forgotten. And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "رُفِعَ عَنْ أُمَّتِي الْخَطَأُ وَالنِّسْيَانُ." The mistake that my ummah do and the things that they forget, that has been lifted upon them. Allah, and also the dua that we recite in Surah Al-Baqarah, رَبَّنَا لَا تُؤَخِذْنَا إِن نَسِينَا وَأَخْطَأْنَا. Allah, do not hold us to account for that which we forget or that which we make a mistake in or err in. طيب. So if a person does any of these things intentionally, then their fasting is invalid. If they're intentionally, then their fasting is invalid. If they do it accidentally, then their fasting is valid. If a person does it accidentally, then their fasting is valid. طيب. We said eating or drinking, صح? What about if a person is forced to do so? If a person is forced to do so, then he is excused because it's obviously out of his hands. طيب. أو مكره. طيب. What about العلم? What about if a person doesn't know the ruling? العلم. He's accountable. So if a person says مثلا الآن والله I didn't know it's haram to drink water during the month of Ramadan. Do we take his excuse? طيب. مثلا for a person masturbates during the month of Ramadan, says well I didn't know it's haram. He's not excused. Why is he not excused?
Because he should have sought the ruling of it before he done it. Well, he should have done it in the first place anyway. But
It's haram in the first place. We're not talking about halal haram. We're talking about does it break your fast or not? His fast isn't broken.
no, the masturbation is.
If he does it not knowing that it actually breaks your fast,
No, he's still held accountable because he should have removed the jihad from himself before he done it.
طيب, someone that reverted to Islam and he's never lived in an environment where there's scholars or ahl ilm or there's no halaqat, doesn't know. It happened to one of the companions with one Allah Ta'ala alayhim. The verse وَكُلُوا وَشَرْبُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمُ الْخَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضُ مِنَ الْخَيْطِ الْأَسْوَدِ. The khayt is a thread in Arabic, صح? Thread, a thick thread. So this companion radiyallahu anhu, Ati ibn Hatim radiyallahu anhu, when he heard the verse, done his suhoor, like he carried on eating up until he can differentiate between the khayt al-abiyad